Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. I almost forgot the name of not the show, but ourselves, Sap. So good start by me. But you know what's funny, Sap, is last week when we did the show, we ended by saying, oh, yeah, quick aside, rumors about the Celtics and Carmelo Anthony. No way, that's not going to happen. That seems stupid. Well, since that time, Sap, we've gotten new information. And the information is that Danilo Gallinari's knee is actually worse than what the initial results were. And he actually did tear his ACL. So he is out for the entire season. And now it doesn't seem so far-fetched that the Celtics might sign Carmelo Anthony. When we were doing the show last week, Sap, we thought Gallinari was maybe going to miss a couple of months. No big deal. But since he's out for the whole year, I think that there's maybe a legitimate chance that Carmelo ends up on the Celtics.
Yeah, there is a real chance, Jet. And again, I'm always wrong. So I was wrong a week ago. But we were just going by reports that Gallinari would be out a month or two. He'd be back in November, December. And at that point, I was like, just let Sam Hauser get some minutes, stretch out Grant Williams a little bit, and go from there. And then you'd have Gallinari back by the holidays. Well, that's not going to happen. So now you need to replace Gallinari. And you look at the Celtics starting five, you have Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown in the backcourt, Jason Tatum, Robert Williams III, and Al Horford up front. So now your bench is Brogdon, Derek White as your sixth and seventh guys, Grant Williams is your eighth guy, and Peyton Pritchard is your 10th guy. So now you need a ninth guy, which is what I thought Gallinari was going to be. Carmelo Anthony, you could do worse than Carmelo Anthony. My only concern with Carmelo Anthony is he's established a great career. He's a future Hall of Famer, top 75 player, all of that stuff, top 10 scorer in the history of the sport. That does mean something. He's never really won anything. Amazingly, he's played in 16 playoff series. He's 3-13 in those 16 playoff series. So he has not done anything in the postseason. And for the most part, he's played on teams that were playing better teams. But just look at the recent performances of Carmelo Anthony. He was pretty darn good with the Lakers last year. In fact, the last 3 years, he's around 38, 39% from three. He can score still, even at an advanced age, and that's what you're going to need from Carmelo Anthony. Is he a top-flight defender? No, he's never been that, but you've got plenty of those guys. Let's look at what he could add. So at this point, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing to bring him in and see what it's all about. It would be a veteran's minimum, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But, you do need to kind of replace Gallinari so that you're deeper, because I think one of the things the Celtics want to do early in the season, especially, Jet, is make sure that Tatum and Brown aren't using up a ton of minutes. And the same thing with Al Horford and Rob Williams III, because I think a lot of those players kind of petered out towards the end, especially in the finals against Golden State. As we've said a million times, Jason Tatum has played more minutes than any other player in the league since the bubble. So, give him some load management so that he's fresh going into the postseason, and a little bit of that with Jaylen Brown. And obviously we're talking about Al Horford, who's going to be 36, 37 through the season. And Rob Williams III has never been the most durable guy. So I think adding another piece is going to be something the Celtics should do going into this season.
Yeah, I think with Gallinari, the Celtics were looking for somebody, to stretch the floor a little bit. He can shoot threes, obviously, and, add the potential of scoring 10 plus points off the bench. Carmelo can certainly do that. Not as good of a 3-point shooter as Gallinari, but definitely better in the mid-range. Neither one was going to do anything defensively, so you're really not losing anything there by changing out those two guys if they do indeed bring in Carmelo. Carmelo seems like a pretty popular guy with players throughout the league, so it seems like he would be a good fit in terms of the locker room as well. It just sort of matters to the Celtics if, that they feel like he's the best option available, which it looks like, potentially, I guess a trade could open up. And if there's mutual interest, Carmelo is, was just in the West Coast in LA playing. He was in Portland prior to that. Does he want to move all the way back to the East Coast? Is he happy, just retiring from basketball? I don't know. But there obviously has to be mutual interest because he's a free agent. So we haven't really heard much about the Carmelo side of things. Does he want to pursue a championship ring, or does he just want to kind of be happy at this stage in his life, wherever he's living? So we'll have to see there. But in terms of the basketball fit, I agree, Sap. It does seem like it makes sense now that Gallinari is out for the year.
Yeah, you need to replace him so that you're deeper, because I thought that was a concern last year. Now, Brogdon obviously adds quality depth to that bench. We know what Derek White can do. Grant Williams fits in nicely there, but one more piece would be good. Again, for the entirety of the season, so that you're able to manage Jason Tatum's minutes, Jaylen Brown's minutes. And again, you've got two bigs who one is going to be 36, 37 throughout the season, and Al Horford and Rob Williams III has never been durable. I also think that they should look at maybe adding a big as well. I mean, the name of names have been thrown out there. Dwight Howard has been thrown out there. I mean, Dwight Howard and Carmelo Anthony on the same roster could be for some comic relief going forward. But, Howard did win a championship in the bubble with the Lakers. I think he can still play, but can you fit that much personality into the locker room, especially when you still got some young players who are impressionable in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and so forth. But, I think they could also use one more big to take some pressure off of Rob Williams III and Al Horford as well.
Yeah, I agree. Right now, they have some guys that they worked out in summer league. Cabling they got Bruno Fernando. So guys they're kind of hoping might develop, but you'd rather have a veteran big if Rob Williams has to miss some time, which you should anticipate that he will based off his track record. So yeah, that's definitely something they could look at as well. But I'd say the Carmelo thing now, last week we gave it a very unlikely. Now I would say with the news about Gallinari, it's more likely than not. He seems to be the best option going forward. And so again, it's sort of, if he's interested in moving 3,000 miles east to pursue a championship. So I'll move it to 70%. I think that he ends up on the Celtics.
70%. I'm right there with you. The only thing I've got to look into, and you may be able to jar my memory a little bit better. As I get older, sometimes I forget these things. But 3-4 years ago, remember when the Celtics were interested in Carmelo Anthony, and it seemed like Danny Ainge was all in favor of it, but Brad Stevens was not in favor of it. Now Ainge is gone and Stevens is in charge. As Stevens changed his opinion now that he's no longer the coach, but he's the general manager, and realizes that they're going to need one more piece in there, and then let's go for it, because the Celtics came so close to winning a championship a year ago that I don't know if Carmelo's the missing piece, but he certainly could add to the puzzle, if Brad Stevens has changed his memory. That's the way I'm remembering what happened 3-4 years ago, when Ainge seemed to be in favor of adding Carmelo and Stevens was not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I think that you're right. And I'm remembering that too. But what I would say, Sap, is that over the past 4 years, I think Carmelo's earned a lot of goodwill throughout the league. With before that, if you look back about 4 years ago when he was out of the league, he was on the Rockets, they let him go. He seemed unwilling to accept the bench role and was kind of unrealistic about where he was at that point in his career. And I think what he managed to do in Portland and then last year in LA changed a lot of people's minds on Carmelo in the league. And so I would say that now you wouldn't be worried about him coming in and demanding X amount of minutes and stuff like that, because he's proven that he's be willing to come off the bench and be effective doing that. He certainly was not the problem in LA last year, Sap.
No.
So I think that I could see Brad Stevens' opinion having changed in this period of time based off of Carmelo. I think has changed in that period of time, because I think he became more accepting of where he was as a player and what he could do to be effective.
That's a great point, because 3-4 years ago, remember when someone asked Carmelo Anthony, would you come off the bench? And he says, me, come off the bench. He kind of snickered at it. And at this point, right, we saw what he did with Portland and also with the Lakers. He was actually a pleasant surprise for the Lakers. He's not the reason they went 33-49 last year. It was LeBron James missing 30 games and Anthony Davis missing close to 30 games and Russell Westbrook that's not fitting in and the whole team not playing defense. Those are the reasons that the Lakers didn't even qualify for the play-in tournament, let alone the playoffs. So I think it would be good. I think it would be a good story. I mean, we root for stories, and Carmelo Anthony coming to the Celtics and maybe helping them win a championship would be quite a story, right? Because Carmelo has been a guy who's put up a lot of points. Again, all-time top 75 player, but he's never been considered a winner or a team guy. Maybe very, very, very late in his career, he shows up in his 20th season and helps the Celtics win their 18th championship. That would be a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, I think it would be a great story too. And a lot of people, I think, early in Jason Tatum's career compared him to Carmelo Anthony too. I think he's a little bit more of a dynamic player because he plays defense and he can stretch the floor a little bit further. Again, you are talking about Carmelo, like you said, a top 75 player, top 10 all-time scorer. So it's not an insult to compare you to Carmelo Anthony, but I think Tatum has more to his game. That doesn't mean he'll necessarily end up being better than Carmelo, but I do think that it is interesting that early in his career, remember, Tatum was taking a lot of those long twos and people were like, oh no, this is just the second coming of Carmelo Anthony. So it'd be an interesting, like you said, story aspect to it too, that now Carmelo Anthony is actually on the team and Jason Tatum has sort of evolved beyond, I think, people's worries of that's what he's going to be.
Yeah, I think Tatum's a better athlete than Carmelo Anthony. And as you said, Jet, more dynamic player. I think he's also more into conditioning, especially young in his career. I mean, Tatum appears to always be in tip-top shape. Remember, he put the muscle on in last year's offseason.
Carmelo never in great shape.
No. I mean, there were times. There was one year about 5-6 years ago. Remember, he had the hooded sweatshirt on, and he's like, "I'm going to get in shape this offseason," and he was kind of running wind sprints or whatever, and it looked like he was out of gas by the fourth wind sprint. So I think Tatum has a higher ceiling than Carmelo because he is a better athlete, more dynamic, a little bigger. Better conditioned athlete. So I think all of that can play into that. But sure, I think that Carmelo could certainly, fill a role here. And look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You can move on from him. But I think if that's what he wants in his 20th year to really contend for a championship, heck, the guy's only played in one conference championship, and that was back, I believe, in 2007 when he was in Denver and they lost to the Lakers in the conference finals, or it was 2008 maybe when the Lakers went on and played the Celtics in the finals. So he's not even come close to getting to the finals because that wasn't even a close series back in 2008. If this is the only missing piece in his career, then he'll come here for a veterans minimum or slightly above that and play his role of 14, 16, 18 minutes a night. There might be some nights he plays a little bit more if you're going to give Tatum the night off and so forth. But I think it certainly could be a fit.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But I think, again, I'm at 70% right now, Sap. It sort of leads us into a little bit of our next topic too, in that the reason we're talking about this is Gallinari got hurt playing for his country, Italy. Sap, your people as well. In Eurobasket, or in the prelim to Eurobasket, and got injured there. We also talked about earlier this offseason, Chet Holmgren got injured playing at at a Pro-Am in Seattle, I think it was, Sap. And so there's a lot of talk about, okay, if you're under an NBA contract, should you be playing basketball in the offseason, competitively, we're not talking about practice, to borrow a line from Allen Iverson, or pickup or anything like that. Should you just be sort of focusing on conditioning and staying healthy? I think that you can't tell these guys to not play basketball competitively. It's just not something that's realistic. That's where I'm at. And I know the teams haven't invested millions of dollars into these guys. And so it's frustrating for them. And you don't want to see, money get flushed down the toilet, but you need to have realistic expectations of people. And these are basketball players, and they love playing basketball. They're going to play basketball. So I don't really see what there is to do about this.
I mean, guys can get hurt in a scrimmage. They can get hurt in practice. They can get hurt in a pickup game, right? I mean, that can happen as well. Gallinari playing for his country. You had Chet Holmgren playing in that Pro-Am on the same court with LeBron James and Jason Tatum, and again, I think Holmgren's going to fight injuries throughout his entire career because of the way he is so slightly built. Paul George, right, suffered a broken leg in leading up to the Olympics, and that kind of derailed him for a year, and he's bounced back and has continued to be a star player. But yeah, these guys want to play, and it's not 11-on-11 tackle football in the offseason. That doesn't happen. Basketball's a little bit different. It seems like it's a year-round sport at this point.
They were both non-contact injuries, by the way.
Which can happen anywhere. It could happen
anywhere.
With these guys walking down a flight of stairs. I mean, that can happen as well. I mean, more likely to get hurt playing basketball than walking down the street. I get that, but these guys play basketball, and Gallinari's playing for his country. He's proud of that, and Italy can't get out of its own way. They probably misdiagnosed his injury as well.
Seems that way.
Seems that way. And also, you've got Italy, which can't even qualify for the freaking World Cup in soccer after winning Euro 2020, albeit a year later because of the pandemic. They're not even going to play in Qatar, which is the second straight World Cup that Italy has not qualified, which pisses me off, really.
Not great.
Not great. I mean, that's the sport of that country. They've won 4 World Cups and they can't even qualify anymore. It'd be like the freaking Yankees, being relegated to AAA, not into the major leagues. It's sickening at this point. But yeah, you want to see these guys play because that's what they do. And look, the injuries are going to happen at some point. Look, I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. I know we're going to give out our Super Bowl pick later in the podcast. And, going into the 2020 playoffs, the Packers lost their left tackle, David Bakhtiari, in just a pretty simple practice. It was before practice even started, just warming up, and he blows out his knee, misses the playoffs. The Packers lose a close game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If Bakhtiari plays, he's generally considered the best left tackle in the sport. Maybe the Packers win that Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl. It happens. I mean, these are big athletic guys that oftentimes, get injuries in the weirdest of situations. So players are going to play. I don't think there's any way you're going to stop them from doing that. Like I said, it's not football where it's 11-on-11 scrimmage. I mean, Patrick Mahomes and his friends don't get together with Josh Allen and his friends and have a pickup football game in April, and tackle each other. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think too, like Eurobasket and the Euro Cup that's prestigious. These people like playing for their countries. Giannis is playing for Greece right now. Jokic is playing for Serbia. All the European players are pretty much playing in this because it's a prestigious tournament and they want to win for their country. So you don't want to tell them no. If you're an NBA team, that creates animosity too. You want to have a good relationship with your players. And at the league, like we've talked about many times, has a much better partnership with its players, between the players and its owners, than in any of the other major sports. Whereas, baseball, the owners and the players can't stand each other. Football, pretty similar. Hockey, it's gotten a little bit better than it was, but still not great. But basketball, I think because of things like this, is like, oh, you want to play in a pro-am? Go ahead. If you want to play in the Eurobasket, or, that's fine too, because basketball, I think all they want to do is continue to grow the sport globally. And nationally too, in the United States too. They want to continue to grow it to younger people. And so I think they look at it as an opportunity to do that. So I don't see anything changing in terms of players playing in the off season. And I'm sure players will continue to get hurt occasionally. There'll be off seasons where nobody gets hurt. And there'll be off seasons like this where a couple of relatively big names get hurt. It's the way it is going to go, I feel like.
Well, it was late May, early June. And remember, Anthony Davis talked about how he hadn't touched the basketball since early April. And people got on him for that, right? Because you want to see the star players hone their craft. And that's been a criticism of Anthony Davis, that he doesn't take the game seriously enough, that he doesn't put the time in to be a great player. Well, give Gallinari credit. He was playing basketball. Give Chet Holmgren credit. He was playing basketball. Paul George, half a decade ago, was getting ready for the Olympics. And the way the court was constructed, unfortunately, ended up with a broken leg and missed the Olympics, but was able to at least get his career going again. No, I'm never going to frown upon guys playing basketball because, again, it could happen in warm-ups. It could happen anywhere. These are the guys. This is what they want to do, and just hope it doesn't happen.
And I know there's been injury clauses in contracts too before. You see them more in football, but in basketball too, I think there's you can't ride a motorcycle in the off season, or I think maybe in general they don't want you riding a motorcycle or doing like cliff diving.
Yeah,
stuff that.
Tell Fernando Tatis that. Fernando Tatis Jr., who broke his wrist riding a motorcycle in the off season and missed the first half of the season.
Can't get out of his own way.
Yeah, and he's missing 80 games because of steroids. I think he could be the biggest star in baseball, but he's got 2 strikes against him right now with the motorcycle and the PEDs, although I never hold PEDs against guys. I'm Barry Bonds' biggest fan, so I can't speak on that.
Yeah. But, I think in terms of stuff like the NBA or the NFL or whatever league, views certain activities as like, okay, you're taking an unnecessary risk by riding a motorcycle or doing, like I said, some sort of like cliff diving or anything like that. They're going to put that in their contract. But playing basketball is not something that they're going to look at and say, yeah, you can't do that in the off season. It's not reasonable. I don't think the teams want to say that at all. The players certainly want to play in the off season too. At the very least, they like to practice or play with their friends. A lot of these guys, they have friends that they miss playing basketball with, because they grew up playing basketball with their friends and they want to do that. And so please, by all means, I have no problem with it. Injuries suck, is part of life. It's not, I don't think that they're doing anything that put themselves in a really bad position to get hurt. If I was a fan and there's a player on my team who got hurt by doing something dumb, then I'd be mad. But for Gallinari and Chet Holmgren, you just say, oh man, that sucks. And you kind of have to move on from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The basketball player is going to play basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Sap, we agree on that. Let's see if we agree on some other things today, because we're going to talk about the Lakers right now. And we talked about the Patrick Beverly signing at length when it happened, or trade, I should say. And now he's starting to get into the Lakers facilities, wearing the Lakers gold and purple, Sap, talking about, exciting to be in the Lakers. But he had a very funny or interesting quote, I should say, the other day. They asked him in the media scrum, what's it going to be like to play with LeBron and Anthony Davis? And he said, and he was not kidding, they are playing with me. I made the playoffs last year. That's how it works. It was not a joke. He was dead serious. Not the greatest start, I think, for the Patrick Beverly era, Sap.
Oh, this is going to work out splendidly. I can just see it right now. Although I believe Russell Westbrook showed up at his introductory press conference, right? And they kind of had a half-hearted hug, and we know
they can't
totally stand each other. Yeah, totally real. I'm sure that, the Lakers said, just give the guy a hug. We're paying you $47 million this year. We'd like to unload you, but we can't at this present time. So do us a solid and give Patrick Beverly a hug. We know they're not exactly best friends. This is what Patrick Beverly does, right? And maybe he'll rattle the cages of the Lakers and wake LeBron and Anthony Davis up. I don't know how the hell you wake Anthony Davis up, other than maybe putting, ammonia caps under his nose the way Brady used to do it before games, especially the night games. This is Patrick Beverly. This is interesting because you've got, look, LeBron is a prodigy. Sap,
he was dead serious, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think he was. And look, he's a professional troll, right? He likes to do this thing. We saw what he did on ESPN back during the playoffs, where he was going after Chris Paul and every other player in the league. He's good at this. But, you look at the Lakers, the makeup of the Lakers, you've got LeBron is a prodigy, right? I mean, he's a once in a lifetime player. You've got Anthony Davis, who won a national championship in 1 year at Kentucky, was the first overall pick, is wildly talented. Westbrook is a guy who's going to go to the Hall of Fame, 4 out of 5 years, average a triple-double. Was a late bloomer at UCLA, but as soon as he got to the NBA, you said, oh, this guy's pretty special. Then you've got Patrick Beverly. Yeah, he was a top 5 pick. Then you got Patrick Beverly, who came out of nowhere. I mean, he's played, it seems like, in every country in the world to finally get to the NBA. He's played on multiple teams. He's the absolute perfect version of a dirt dog, right? He's going to play defense and get in people's faces. So maybe this is exactly what the Lakers need. I don't think LeBron or Anthony Davis paying much attention to this. They'll just go on their way, and LeBron can flash his 4 championship rings in Patrick Beverly's face if he's got any kind of concerns.
Just what's comical to me is it's not just that, he thinks he's on the same level as those guys, because that's obviously ridiculous. But that, the comment of I made the playoffs last year, it'd be the same thing if Peyton Pritchard or Grant Williams was traded and they get to play with me. I made the playoffs last year. I was in the finals. Patrick Beverly was the 5th best player, 6th best player on the Timberwolves last year.
Yeah, they lost in the first round.
They lost in the first round.
Right, yeah. They lost to Memphis in 6 games, right? It was a pretty interesting series. They had some chances, but they lost in the first round. At least Pritchard and Grant Williams made it to the finals. So they accomplished a hell of a lot more than Patrick Beverly. But this is what he does, and it's going to be entertaining. And maybe it shakes up the Lakers and wakes them up because they need something.
It's just I said this before, Seth, when they made the trade for him, he's delusional. I like the guy. I like the type of player. I love those types of players, but man, are you delusional if you think that, you're this guy who makes the playoffs and so they get to play with you. He said, remember, Seth, we talked about this, I think when he first got traded, he said on ESPN that he's worth about 15, 16 games to them. Yeah. LeBron at his prime isn't worth 15, 16 games, I don't think, to a team. Maybe. It's crazy.
If Beverly's right, they'll win 49 games and he'll be league MVP. Book it. right?
I mean, they are capable of winning 49 games, but if Anthony Davis and LeBron are out for the same amount of time and Patrick Beverly plays all 82 games, they're not winning 49 games. I
No,
can tell you that much.
no. I think
So
LeBron
he
and
might
Anthony
take
Davis.
credit if those guys are healthy and they win 49 games and say, I'm the reason we did it. But I mean, I think realistically, everybody else knows that's not true.
No, LeBron and Anthony Davis will determine how many games this team wins or whatever other moves they make. And if Russell Westbrook decides in his, 14th or 15th year to blend in, which I don't think that's going to happen either. It's going to be interesting to see what the Lakers accomplish this year. Again, if LeBron and Anthony Davis are healthy, I think they'll make the playoffs, but how far they go, who the hell knows? Because they've got a lot of question marks.
Is this the team, Sap? Are they done?
I keep thinking in the back of my mind that Kyrie Irving's in play, but I don't think that's going to happen now that Durant's staying in Brooklyn, and it appears that Kyrie's going to stay in Brooklyn as well. This could be it. I mean, there might be some veteran that's available closer to camp that they can add. We keep hearing about Buddy Hield as a potential trade chip from Indiana. I think that would be a nice piece because they need some perimeter shooting, but nothing that's going to be earth-breaking or groundbreaking or earth-shattering. I guess I kind of combine the two, but
that's fine.
Yeah, I've put together my own language at some point, but I think they're going to add something, but not enough to maybe make them the favorites out west because you still got Golden State's the defending champs. The Clippers seem to be everybody's hot pick because you expect Kawhi to be back, and he's kind of like an Olympian. It seems like every 4 years Kawhi ends up in the finals and looks like a great player and then takes a couple of years off and it's his turn to be back in contention. But I would expect the Lakers could still at least make the playoffs this year if LeBron and Anthony Davis play 65, 68 games. I think they're both good enough to get them there.
Sap, I wanted to devote a little bit more time to this, like the general managers league executive poll, because we're running out of a little bit of time here. So sure. I kind of want to just pivot to, we know that today is the opening day of the NFL. And so, yes, we're doing a basketball podcast, but we're still football fans on this show. In fact, John Sapichetti has it's just been tweeting out about his predictions for Aaron Rodgers and his beloved Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
Yes.
Every day now. So I guess, Sap, what we need to do is put our money where our mouth is, and on day one, predict the Super Bowl. So I will. Yeah. I know what you did because I read your Twitter, but let's see. You can tell everybody else.
Okay, so my 7 playoff teams in the NFC are Packers, Rams, Buccaneers, Eagles, Vikings, 49ers, and Saints. And ultimately, I've got the Packers beating the Buccaneers in the NFC Championship game. I just figure if I keep picking the Packers to go to the Super Bowl one of these years, they actually will go to the Super Bowl. They haven't been there in 12 years.
Yeah.
In the AFC, my 7 playoff teams are Buffalo, Ravens, Chargers, Colts, Chiefs, Bengals, and Broncos. Ultimately, I've got the Bills beating the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, and I've got the Bills beating the Packers in the Super Bowl 30-24. Now, last year I picked Cleveland to beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. I was right about the Rams getting to the Super Bowl. I was in the right state, but the wrong city because Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl, so I was wrong about that. So the team I picked to lose last year's Super Bowl actually won last year's Super Bowl, so I'm kind of hoping for that same vibe this year by picking the Bills to beat the Packers, and that means the Packers win. Look, the thing is, everyone and their mother is picking the Bills to win the Super Bowl. They were 11-6 last year, lost in the divisional round, heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs, right? But I think I remember after last year's Super Bowl, what I oftentimes like to do is after the Super Bowl, pick next year's Super Bowl, just kind of a fun experiment. And at the time, I think I said Bills 49ers, but the 49ers quarterback situation is just too muddled right now to pick them. So I picked the Bills to win Super Bowl 57 like 8 months ago. So everybody's just following me at this point. But I think the Bills are going to be tough to beat. I am, and I think Josh Allen's going to win the MVP. He'd be the first player to win the regular season MVP and win a Super Bowl in the same year since Kurt Warner in 1999. It just doesn't happen. We've seen guys win MVPs and then not able to win the Super Bowl in the same year. Brady, it happened 3 times and Rodgers 4. So I think that's what can certainly happen. I'm not high on the Patriots. I think they're going to go 7-10. I think their, talent level is not all that great. And again, just to let people know that Bill Belichick, when he doesn't have Tom Brady as his quarterback, is 71-79, which is essentially the same record as Rex Ryan without Tom Brady.
It's
So
not nice.
not nice at all. And Tom Brady, last time I checked, is in Tampa Bay.
He is in Tampa Bay. I think that's very original of you to pick the Bills, Sap. I really like that. Like, at least
Right.
you have the credit. You did pick them, like you said, right after the Super Bowl. According to you, I can't confirm or deny that that's
Well, you
exactly
could go
what
back
happened.
on my Twitter timeline all the way back to like February 14th of last year if you want to do that. I'm sure there's a shortcut to go there. And you'll see that I picked the Bills over the 49ers for Super Bowl 57 back in February of earlier this year.
Let's see, Sap. I think I'm just gonna give my Super Bowl pick. I don't know if I'm gonna
That's
give
all.
all my playoff teams. I think the Patriots will be better than you do, though. I have the inverse of what record you have. I have them 9-7, so
Okay.
not bad.
Well,
Not
they're
great.
playing 17 games, so
Oh, yeah,
9-8
so
or
more than that.
10-7. Okay.
10-7,
There you go, just like last year.
just like last year. Okay. I have the Chiefs and Buccaneers, and I have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Okay, that seems like a good pick. I mean, that's a pretty popular one. You can't go wrong with that. Rematch of the Super Bowl the year before.
When a team has everything, like the Bills, like everybody's picking the Bills, like you said, that's a lot of pressure for a team that's never had to deal with pressure or in a lot of people's lifetimes now.
Yep.
They had Super Bowl pressure, in the early 90s with Jim Kelly, but there's a lot of pressure now with social media. There's even more pressure. And also, I don't know that if they can handle that. I could see them falling a little bit short of expectations. Talent wise, I do agree. I think they're the most talented team in the league. They added this offseason too. They got Von Miller. So they should be on paper better. I just still think Patrick Mahomes, to me, is the best quarterback in the league. I believe in his talent level, even though they lost Tyreek Hill. I think that it's actually might be a good thing for a quarterback as talented as Patrick Mahomes to have a more diverse set of wide receivers and be able to spread the ball around a little bit more. The same might work for Aaron Rodgers, Sap, in Green Bay. I know that, Devontae Adams is gone and he's more unproven receivers now in Green Bay than they do in Kansas City. But if Rodgers is able to sort of overcome his own ego and spread the ball around, perhaps the offense will work even better. I don't know. But I again believe in Patrick Mahomes and I believe in Tom Brady. And I think that the Buccaneers, people are overlooking how much talent they still have. And they added Julio Jones. I don't know what more he's going to add to the team, but I really like I like the Bucs, and they were pretty damn close to beating the Rams last year, who won the Super Bowl. So I think they're right there. And I think that again, the Chiefs, because of Patrick Mahomes. So that's who I'm going to take. And I didn't want to be taking the Bills because I don't want to be like everybody else. So.
Well, Brady wins the Super Bowl every other year, so why not?
True.
14, 16, 18, 20. Yeah, not bad at all. A pretty good run there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the Super Bowl matchup. The Bills, to me, feel a little bit like the 04 Red Sox, like a team that had so many years of agony and came so close the year before. The 03 Red Sox lost in Game 7 to the Yankees in the American League Championship Series on the Aaron Boone home run. The Bills lost last year in the playoffs when they had a 3-point lead with 13 seconds left and somehow managed to screw that up and lose in overtime. And now everybody's picking the Bills this year. They kind of feel a little bit like the 04 Red Sox. So, maybe in the AFC Championship game, they'll be down like 27-3 and come back and win that and then go into the Super Bowl and win it. But, of course, I'm rooting for the Packers. That's the team I'm rooting for. You know that. And I think the Packers may have the best defense in football. And I'm not kidding about that. They are loaded on defense. They can run the football. Their offensive line is really good. It's going to come down to Mr. Rodgers. If he can integrate himself with those receivers, I think they'll be tough to beat.
And if he can, stay out of his own way and not say he's inoculated. And, I saw the interview he did with Joe Rogan, his new best friend.
Yes.
He said a lot of, him and Kyrie Irving, it's like if you could just put a bag over their heads, they would be like listening to the exact same person.
And Kurt Schilling too. Put Kurt Schilling in with them. The three of them would be quite interesting.
I'd listen to that show, actually. It would be awful to listen to, but I'd still listen to it. I am curious too with the Bills, Sap. The last thing I want to say about them is what Brian Daboll is worth to them in terms of that he developed Josh Allen in this, this offensive system that was, maybe the best in football last year.
Mhm.
Now he's the head coach of the Giants. Is the offense going to change much? Is Josh Allen, who is supremely talented, but sometimes prone to making dumb plays, is he going to be affected? I don't know. We'll have to see.
It could
I've
be.
I've never bought into Josh Allen. I so far have looked very stupid for never having bought into Josh Allen, but maybe I will be redeemed this year if the loss of Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator has impacts them to the point where they're not competing for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both were not big fans of Josh Allen coming out of the 18 draft. I was big on Josh Rosen, so I got the wrong Josh.
Yes.
But Josh Allen to me is right there with Mahomes, Rodgers, and Brady. Those to me are the four best quarterbacks in football. And he's the closest thing I've seen to John Elway, who was one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the sport. The size, the toughness, the rocket arm. He's much more accurate now, and Brian Daboll had a lot to do with that. Daboll's now the head coach with the Giants. I think he's going to do wonderful things for Daniel Jones in New York. You remember Daniel Jones' rookie year, 2019? He had 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That's pretty good for a rookie. Then Joe Judge went there and screwed up everything for 2 years. I think Daboll's going to get Daniel Jones back on focus. I think the Giants actually are going to finish second in the NFC East. Surprise pick there over the Cowboys. Wow. I think Philadelphia wins the division. I don't want to get off the rails too far, but I think Ken Dorsey, who's the new offensive coordinator, who was the quarterback coach under Daboll in Buffalo, is in perfect spot to really continue on with that. So I think that Josh Allen's going to be fine. Allen, the only thing I see sometimes with him is he gets so amped up that he gets like almost like hyperventilating out there, and that's not good for a quarterback. And we can see with him, he has a lot of really great games, but his off games are really poor. Whereas Brady and Rodgers, when they have off games, they're not that bad. Like they don't throw 3 interceptions. They don't derail their team. Allen has the propensity to have 3 or 4 of those games, and you just hope it's not in the playoffs when he has one of them, because that will knock you right out. He was incredible in last year's postseason, beating the Patriots 47-17, and then, nearly beating the Chiefs in that memorable divisional round. But, he is prone to have those dips, so he's going to have to try to avoid that. But I think Dorsey will do a good job as the offensive coordinator there.
All right. Well, we will have to see, but that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. And today we were the Pick and Roll NBA and NFL podcast. Thanks to Full Press Coverage as always. And make sure you check out their website. Make sure you check out our social medias at JohnSap25. He's given not only his basketball opinions, but he's giving opinions on directors I saw, and all his football picks. And follow him throughout the football season. He's always giving out football picks. Usually they're decent, Sap. I'd say you believe in your picks. I don't know if somebody's going to become a millionaire trusting your picks.
Well, last year the NFL was great. I think I was around 60% against the spread, but I was horrible.
So what do I know?
College.
Go with Sap.
No, but I'm not going to give out any college picks this year because they were horrible last year. I couldn't pick my nose, but that means this year the NFL I'll be at about 42%. So, do whatever you want. Just look at them and make your own decision, I guess.
You can check out me at Jet Stryer, and you can find the show wherever podcasts are found. We will talk to you later, everybody. See ya.